Cardinal Tumi, we wait to win. He Martin Jumbam. Since I was born, he can dance me. dear Kumbu, I'm weeping for you. Eh, 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 my dear Kumbu, I feel sorry for you. Eh, eh. I cried, my beloved Kumbu, the land so Tobin, Shiso Junction, and I could not go ahead because of the fear of the unknown. Yes, I could not go. Why? Gunshots, rap rap, choo-choo, rap rap, boom, rap rap, choo-choo, rap rap, boom, boom, and off I went away. Hey, yo, fan la boom. And now my dream is that all this should end, and we want peace. Oh, oh, human conflict, one must never confuse error with the one who errs. The person who errs is always and above all a human being, and he must always be regarded and treated in accordance with that lofty dignity. Oh Lord, divine Master. Oh Lord, divine Master. Oh Lord, divine Master. Oh Lord, divine Master. Grant that I may not so much. Grant that I may not so much. Seek to be consoled as to console. Seek to be consoled as to console. To be understood as to understand. To be understood as to understand. To be loved as to love. To be loved as to love. Oh, it's in giving that we receive. For it's in giving that we receive. It's in pardoning that we are pardoned. It's in pardoning that we are pardoned. It's in dying that we are born. It's in dying that we are born. To eternal life. To eternal life. Lord, make me a channel of your peace. 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 Whatever violates the integrity of the human person.
Kishiki zamele kinyale
Satan run along. Satan G the key. Yeah.
Okay. Hello, good afternoon, everybody, or good evening if you're joining us from a different time zone. Thank you for joining us for this virtual book launch of Cardinal Tumi's memoir. My name is Lillian. I'm part of the team here at Spears Media. We're grateful and honored that you could take the time to join us this afternoon for this event to publicly launch this book, which Spears Media published earlier this year. And we're grateful that the Cardinal and his co-author chose Spears Books as the outfit to make this work. This very timely and very, very significant work brought to the attention of the public. So we thank you for being here. I'm going to introduce you to who is going to coordinate and moderate the afternoon, the event for us. He's no stranger to us and to this community. Mr. Martin Jumbam is going to be the moderator for the event today. He holds a bilingual degree from the University of Yaoundé, English and French. He holds a diploma in Spanish studies from La Universidad Complutense, I hope I got it right, in Madrid, Spain, and a maîtrise en littérature comparée from La Sorbonne Nouvelle Paris 3. A diploma in translation interpretation from Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., and a master's degree in comparative literature from the University of Alberta in Edmonton, Canada. He has worked for over 20 years for an American oil company, Pectin Cameron, in Douala, before serving for 4 years as general manager of La Maison Catholique de la Communication Sociale, the Catholic media house of the Archdiocese of Douala. He's the author of My Conversion Journey with Cardinal Tumi, published by Langa in 2014, and also the author of Beats of Memory, published by Spears Media. He lives in Douala and works as a freelance translator, conference interpreter, and motivational speaker. And I know more of his work in journalism because he ran a blog and he worked for the Catholic newspaper for a long time. So I know him as a prolific writer and I followed his writing over the years. So it's an honor that you're here and you help bring this book to light. So thank you for doing that. So over to you, Martin.
Thank you very much, Lillian, for that kind introduction. As you say, my name is Martin Jumbam. I will moderate this event. Before, I'm particularly happy to have two people who will be the main speakers on this event, two people who know the Cardinal very well. Dr. Simon Monzu is with us. It's a name that is very well known in Cameroon, especially in the Anglophone community. And he's done quite a lot of work. I would introduce him as time goes on. And also Father Michael Chumbu, who's the secretary to Cardinal Tumi, worked with him for very many years. But before I come to them, let me first of all take a short moment to talk about the genesis of this book. But as time goes on, Lillian will also have joining us when it comes to the intermediate music. We have our famous Richard Kings. He's here with us. Then Gaspard Mbole. And there was Father Joseph Dufay who opened this occasion with the beautiful music we listened to a minute ago. And then there will be a short reading by Professor Ben Bongam, who introduced these people as time goes on. And that would be the people who will be with us for this event. But let me go directly to the genesis of this book. I happen to have collaborated in the writing of this book. And I believe that if we are to understand the event of the night in November 2020, when Christian Cardinal Tumi was abducted and kept for a night in the plains of Ndop, we first of all must look at the history of our country. The event of the night of November in 2020 can be linked directly to the beginning of the history of our country, because it was Cardinal Tumi's search for peace in our land that landed him in trouble. So to better appraise the events recounted in this book, we have to look at the history even beginning from the 1960s with the marriage between the French-speaking Cameroon and English-speaking Cameroon. In the words of Bernard Fonlon, it would be John Bullism, referring to Anglo-Saxon culture in Cameroon, and the Cartesian culture, referring to the French culture in Cameroon. So back in the, if we go back to the 1970s, we see Cardinal Tumi. The Cardinal Tumi came into the forefront of the activities in our country when he was appointed the rector of the major seminary in Mbole. He had just been appointed to that position by the bishops of Bamenda, Monsignor Paul Vedekov, and the Bishop of Boya, Monsignor Pius Awa. And one of the assignments that was given to Cardinal Tumi was that he should look at why there was so much corruption in Cameroon. He was asked to form a study group to find out what caused so much, brought about so much corruption in Cameroon. And he did. He brought together other religious leaders and then men and women of a certain group in Bamenda. And they formed a group and studied the reasons why there was so much corruption in Cameroon. The publication that came out from that meeting caused a lot of problems for Cardinal Tumi. That was the beginning of his problems with the Cameroon administration. And I believe that from that moment until Cardinal Tumi breathed his last moments on earth, he was never absent from the radar of the Cameroonian security apparatus. That one is clear. I worked with him and I know what I'm talking about. So back in the 70s, that began. And the then president of the Republic, Madu Ahijo, asked the then governor of the Northwest Province, David Aboyemachoe, to find out what was happening. And David Aboyemachoe interrogated Christian Cardinal Tumi, which was the first of such interrogations he was going to have from the administration for several years to come. And David Aboyemachoe, to his credit, found nothing to blame the cardinal and his team for. Then the cardinal was appointed to Yagua. He became the Bishop of Yagua, and later on the Archbishop of Garoua. And even still up there, he was still in conflict with the Cameroon administration, especially because when he wanted to build parishes up in the north, the government wanted him to ask for authorization to build parishes. And then his question was, why should I ask for authorization when Muslims are building mosques without asking for authorization? And the then governor of the north, Fosi Yakumto, I believe he was, talked to him and told him the government was not very happy with him. And from there, when he was appointed the Archbishop of Douala, things became even more intense for him, because he came to Douala in the 1990s, when the whole of Cameroon was in turmoil, following what is now called the ville morte, the ghost towns of those days. And Cardinal Tumi was very much in the forefront. And the government believed that he was seeking to take over power in Cameroon. I mean, this is well documented. In his book, the political regimes of Madu Ahijo and Paul Biya and Cardinal Tumi Priest, documents all this. I'm not saying anything out of the ordinary. So when Cardinal Tumi retired from being the Archbishop of Douala, he became the Archbishop Emeritus. And that is where he took up the baton of peace in Cameroon. Dr. Monzu is here, and Father Michael, they work very closely with him. They will talk to us about that. So when Cardinal Tumi decided to take up the baton of peace in Cameroon following what has been called the Anglophone crisis in our country from 2016, when the lawyers and the teachers led peaceful demonstrations throughout the northwest and the southwest regions of our country, and they were brutally suppressed. The so-called, what is now known as the Anglophone problem began, and Cardinal Tumi decided to form a group, the Anglophone General Conference, and we'll hear more about that from the people who were really deeply involved in it. And if Cardinal Tumi was abducted in DOP, it is precisely because of his search for peace in our country. He comes from a region of Cameroon called Nsolan, and the Phonom Saul had been chased away from his palace, and he was living in Yaoundé. And the elders of the land decided that Cardinal Tumi should be one of those people to convince, as an elder of the people, to convince the Phone to go back to his palace. And that is the story of the book, as you have it. And it was on his way to leave the Phone in his palace that Cardinal Tumi was abducted. So, but let me briefly go through the genesis of the book. I think in December, Cardinal Tumi sent for me he had just been released from his one-night captivity in Dub, and he sent for me. I came and he told me he wanted to write his story, what had happened to him that night, and he wanted me to work with him. He was already very frail, especially after that night in captivity. It was not easy for him. And so I asked him, what do you want me to do? He said, I just want to tell you my story, and then you put it in the book and we'll have it out. So I sat down with him. It took about 2 weeks. Every day I went there. When he had a chance to talk to me, he did. And so the book was written in the form of an interview. And it was question and answers. He answered my questions I asked. And first I then transcribed the book and took it to him. He and I took a look. He said it looked good. But when I went back to my office, I sat down and I said, but the Cardinal has given so many interviews to people over the years. In fact, at that very moment, a book came out written by a reverend sister in Douala on the 90th anniversary of Christian Cardinal Tumi. It was also a series of interviews the Cardinal had given her. That book came out. It was, unfortunately, the Reverend Sister had some difficulties with her hierarchy. The church ecclesiastical or the ecclesial authority was not very happy with the book for one reason or another. That's not my concern here. But then this book came. I wrote the book, and I was an interview. I didn't want to do the same thing the Reverend Sister had just done not too long before then. So I decided to take out my voice from the book, to step aside from the book and let the Cardinal's voice ring from the beginning to the end. So instead of having it as an interview, I decided to pull my voice out and let the Cardinal talk. Wherever there were questions, I made the Cardinal kind of ask the question himself and then respond to them. So the book is totally the Cardinal's voice. My own collaboration with him was that I was the one who interviewed him for the book, but I wanted to step aside, be out of the picture, so the Cardinal's voice could come out. The book was published in Douala, and it came out on the 1st of January this year. The 1st of January in Douala, all the Christians of the Diocese of Douala assembled around the cathedral in Douala. It's an event which the Cardinal himself began in 1993. And it has been continued till this day. So the 1st of January was when the book was published, and it came out, and we saw the book outside the cathedral. I remember the Cardinal, after the event, I went to him. I was very happy. I said, "Oh, Eminence, the book is out." And so he said, well, were you here to attend mass or to sell your book? So I said, well, you know, the two, but it was clear that I did not attend mass. I was there to sell the book, and it sold very well. And so he was quite happy with the book. And I told him, my own book had just been published by Spears Media. And I gave him a copy, and he looked at it and was very impressed with what he saw. He said that was really how books should be published, very professional. And I told him, listen, if you give me your authorization, I will ask the Spears Media if they can also publish your book. And he gave me the go-ahead. I contacted the Spears Media, and they accepted to publish the book. And that is the book we are looking at today. It's a slim publication, but it does talk much about what the Cardinal went through. So that is, in a nutshell, what I see as the genesis of the book we have in our hand today. So, Lillian, that is what I can say about the genesis of the book, how it came to be in your hands, in the Spears books and hands, and you've done a good job. Well, thank you very much. Well, now, go back to you, Lillian, to Jude for the book launch. So that before I call the first person to speak, who will be Dr. Simon Monzo. Lillian, or Jude, please, you can take over.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jumbam. I think that background story was so essential for us to understand how it really came about. So I would like to take this opportunity once again to welcome everyone. I want to welcome especially the Jumbam family. I see they're here in their numbers to support
their dad,
to support their writer. So that's amazing. So welcome everyone. We have people joining us here from South Africa, from Canada, from the US, from Cameroon, hopefully UK and around the world. I think this is the beauty of Zoom. Events that would have prevented us from participating remotely, now we can all do so from afar and all feel together, under the same roof. So that's just amazing. Before we proceed, I think it is prudent for us to spend a minute in silence in memory of the late Cardinal. This has been a tough year for us. We've lost two of our authors, but today this event is dedicated to the Cardinal Tumi. So we will spend a minute of silence in reflection in honor of his memory. So let's do that, please. All right, thank you. So this book came out earlier this year, as Mr. Jumbam said, and we are deeply, deeply honored to have brought it to the international community. The Cameroon version, of course, was published in Douala, and we've had people approaching us asking questions like, how can we get this book in Cameroon? And just so you know, the Cameroon version is in Douala, so you can actually purchase this book in Douala. If you're based abroad and you would like to purchase this book, it is currently on sale on our website, which we'll be sharing the link shortly, so you can actually buy that, or you can gift it to someone who is interested and unable to purchase it. It is currently on sale for $13 US. So I just want to say a few words about the importance of telling our stories. This is a genre of writing that is not yet popular with our people. And by that I mean memoirs, telling our story. You can think of some of our most prominent personalities who have gone. We don't have biographies of them or autobiographies, so they didn't get to tell their stories. Or even if they did, it would be in oral form, which is fine too. But that oral form is not recorded. You cannot play it somewhere. You cannot watch it somewhere. So I think it's really important for us to take this as an important aspect of telling our stories, recording our stories and passing it on to the next generation. And so we are really pleased that we are at the forefront of promoting this kind of genre of writing. And we have quite a good number of them in the pipeline. So we know some people bought hard copies of this book. Some people have the hard copy, others have the electronic copy. And so this is the official moment of the book's launch. So if you do have a copy of this book, please just raise it. If you have a digital version, you can hold your Kindle or your iPad or some other device that you may have. Awesome. Yep. You can see Father Chumbu holding his digital version. That's great. So please, this is the moment. If we have everyone holding their book, we will now officially pronounce it launched. And so we congratulate Mr. Jumbam and the Cardinal himself for telling this story. And we thank our editorial team for working with us to get this in the hard copy that you now see. All right, thank you all. And we will continue with the program. So over to you, Mr. Jumbam.
Okay, thank you, Jude. You said something there which is very interesting and really of urgency for us to leave our stories behind us. Our political leaders, our religious leaders have not left their stories behind us, which is always quite a regret. In other countries, other parts of the world, we have political leaders, and religious leaders leaving their memoirs behind them. They don't have to write the memoirs themselves. There are ghost writers, people who can do that for them. So it is something which the genre which we have to try to exploit in our country and lead our people to read. One of the difficulties is getting Cameroonians to read. Someone once said that if you even give books free to Cameroonians, they will not read it. But if you were to write a book inside a cork of a beer before evening, everyone would have read it. It's not very flattering commentary about our people, but that is it. It shows that we are more into beer than into reading. Well, that said, I think it's time for us to bring our first speaker, who is none other than Dr. Simon Monzo. Before I do that, let me just give you a little background on Dr. Monzo. He will be, feel free to stop me if I go overboard. Okay, Dr. Monzo is an international civil servant, has worked for several years for the United Nations in various capacities. And as he was the United Nations Secretary General's Deputy Special Representative to Cote d'Ivoire. And I believe he is in the same capacity today in Mali. Dr. Monzo will correct me there. Dr. Monzo has extensive experience in political affairs, human rights, in law, in academia, and in management. He joined the United Nations in 1995 as a volunteer after working for more than 13 years in academia. He's held several high-level positions with the United Nations, including acting head of the United Nations Human Rights Field Operation in Rwanda, Senior Policy Advisor with the United Nations Development Program, representative of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights in Cote d'Ivoire, and Director of Political Affairs in the United Nations Stabilization Mission in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Dr. Monzo attended St. Joseph's College in Sassi, and later on he attended the Cameroon College of Art, Science and Technology in Bambili. And he holds a doctorate in law from the University of Cambridge, Master of Law, LLM degree from the University of London, and law degrees from the a law degree from the University of London, and has been a member of the bar in England since 1973. He was one of the founders of the 1996 Constitution for Cameroon. As National Secretary for Economic and Social Affairs in the National Secretariat of the CPDM Central Committee, he took part in the deliberations of the tripartite conference convened by President Biya in Yaoundé from the 30th of August to 18th of November 1991. He was selected by the tripartite conference made up of an 11-member technical committee to draft the Constitution of Cameroon, which was made up of 7 Francophones and 4 Anglophones, and chaired by Professor Joseph Owona. As a CPDM member of the technical committee in charge of the drafting of the Constitution of Cameroon, Dr. Monzo strongly advocated the return of the country to a federal system of government because he sincerely believed that such a framework would be the best framework for recognizing, upholding, and protecting the Anglophone identity and giving Anglophone their full rights as citizens of this country. So in 1993, he, alongside Professor Carlson Anyangwe, Barrister Elad, and I believe Minister Benjamin Etoy, convened the first All-Anglophone Conference, AAC, in Boya. And the purpose of convening this meeting was to arrive at a common set of proposals for asserting and safeguarding Anglophone interest to be submitted and defended at the impending national constitutional talks announced for March 1993 by the President. And the AAC was massively attended. I was one of those who attended in Boya in 1993, the same thing in 1994. And it was successful, and federalism was adopted as a form of the state to be proposed by Anglophones at the announced National Constitutional Forum, which failed. And the second All-Anglophone Conference, AAC2, was convened in Bamenda a year later. And Cardinal Tumi makes reference to these conferences in this book when he started his Anglophone General Conference, which I believe Dr. Monzo will be talking about in a minute. And so it is an honor for me to welcome Dr. Simon Monzo to this book launch. I don't want to anticipate what he's going to say, but I'm sure that he relates fully to the events that are in this book when Cardinal Tumi found himself captive in the hands of separatists in Ndop. And I believe the reason will be quite clear to Dr. Monzo. Dr. Monzo, please take over.
Thank you, Martin. And thanks also for Spears Books for the privilege of your invitation to share with your guests my reading of the book that we are here to launch on this memorable occasion. I feel greatly honored. And I am profoundly grateful to you, Martin, for your very kind and detailed introduction, practically all of which I find to be accurate, except for one detail, and even that you did not affirm, you put it by way of a doubt, you weren't sure. So let me clarify that I retired from UN service in October of 2016, my last duty station being, as you indicated, that of Deputy Special Representative of Secretary General in Cote d'Ivoire at the rank of Assistant Secretary General. But after that, in January of 2018, the Secretary General appointed me and 2 other colleagues on an ad hoc basis as members of the UN International Commission of Inquiry for Mali, which role we assumed, and we submitted our report to the Secretary General in June of 2020. So that's it. Otherwise, and since then I have resumed the splendid life of a retiree. Now, coming to the book, which has just been launched, and in any case, which we are here to launch. How does an internationally renowned personality who habitually resides in urban Douala in Francophone Cameroon's littoral region find himself a night captive far away in the countryside of Ndop in Anglophone Cameroon's northwest region? It is a curious question, isn't it? We find the answer in the book that we are launching at this ceremony. Mr. Jumbam, the moderator, has already told us. The book, My Night in Captivity, is a memoir. It is not a work of fiction. It is not a novel. It is not a thriller. It is a true life experience narrated by the person who lived it. Indeed, My Night in Captivity is a story of a night spent in captivity in November 2020 by the late Christian Wigan Tumi, the Emeritus Archbishop of Douala, Cardinal and Prince of the Roman Catholic Church. It narrates the singular experience of a prelate whose outlook in this context was shaped, as Martin alluded to, by a confluence of factors. I don't know whether it's from somewhere else, but if the, is it possible that we mute? There's some background noise that's not very convenient. Jude, I don't know. Anyway, so as I was saying, the book narrates the singular experience of a prelate whose outlook in this context was shaped by a confluence of factors, namely attachment to ancestral roots in his native Nsoland and advocacy for peace in Cameroon, his fatherland. A fatherland devastated by a senseless fratricidal war, one that is ravaging lives and livelihoods and depriving children of the right to education, among other horrendous consequences. It is not commonplace for a cardinal and retired archbishop to be a frontline player in civic governance at local or national level. In this book, Christian Cardinal Tumi finds himself on a mission to escort the fawn of Nso from Yaoundé to his palace in Kumbo. The fawn has been absent from Kumbo for a long time, to the anguish of the Nso people everywhere, and especially those back in Nsoland. The cardinal is a notable Nso. In Yaoundé, he attends 2 meetings between the fawn and notables and elders of Nso, at the end of which the fawn agrees to return to his people and resume the responsibilities of his royal office. A delegation of notables and elders traveling in several cars is constituted to accompany him from Yaoundé to Kumbo. The fawn elects to travel with his wife and his valet all the way to Kumbo in the cardinal's personal car. In Mbole, about 10 kilometers from Bamenda on the road to Kumbo, all other cars escorting the phone from Yaoundé to Bamenda and then to Mbole abruptly desert the convoy. The Cardinal's car is the only one left on the journey to Kumbo, with the phone and his wife aboard. The burden of taking the phone safely from Mbole to his palace in Kumbo, where he is eagerly awaited by his loyal subjects, now rests solely upon the Cardinal. It is a heavy burden thrust willy-nilly upon the shoulders of an elderly prelate who is passionately devoted to his ancestral roots and to the traditional institutions of Nso. His native land, of course. The mission is heroic. It is delicate. Up the hill from Mbole, down the slopes of Sabga, onto the plain of Ndop, the Cardinal's car, with its load of dignitaries, cruises towards Kumbo. Suddenly, the lone car and its occupants fall into the hands of heavily armed Amba Boys. They take the Cardinal, his driver, the phone's wife, and the phone's valet at gunpoint on motorbikes into the bush, several kilometers from the main Ndop Kumbo road. There, they hold their prey captive all night. The following morning, they subject the Cardinal to a robust interrogation and post a video recording of it on social media, where naturally it goes viral. They accuse the Cardinal of luring Amba Boys to lay down their arms, only for those who do so to be killed by government forces, they say. They also accuse him of advocating a federation rather than separation as a solution to the ongoing crisis in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. The Cardinal uses this opportunity to tell the Amba Boys what he thinks they are doing wrong. They are baffled by the frankness with which he talks to them. We are here at the point of confluence in the story. The waters of devotion to Nso, its traditions and its institutions, mingle here with those of advocacy for peace in the Cameroon fatherland. The sense of tension and danger is pervasive throughout the book. And several times, the narrator refers to it. For example, at page 27, he says, "There I was, alone with the phone and a few other people who all looked up to me to get them home safely. And frankly, I did not know how I was going to do that. A strange feeling of abandonment suddenly descended on me, and I had the premonition that something bad was going to happen." Or again, on pages 28 to 29, it was already late at night when we were again taken on a bike for another destination. Since it was already pitch dark, we could not say for sure where we were. We must have gone several kilometers into the bush through very rough and tiny paths. At one point, our biker suddenly stopped and announced that his commanding officer had asked him to drop us there in the bush. I asked if he was serious about leaving us in the bush, and he said, yes, that he had been asked to drop us there, but to remain with us pending further instructions. Just then, another biker arrived and led the way to another abandoned farmhouse. There was no light, and we had to use our phone torches to see anything. Or take this passage on page 39. They, that is the Amba Boys who were interrogating the Cardinal, they then changed their style by asking me to affirm for public consumption that I had not been tortured, which was true. I did not, however, fail to remind them that keeping a 90-year-old man under such dreadful conditions for the night and without any food or his medicine was a form of torture. So the Cardinal, the narrator, is fully aware of the danger of his situation, the predicament for himself, his driver, and the other captives. Yet, in all of this, he was able to work up the state of mind to see something humane, what he calls the human side in his captors. He says on pages 49 to 50, I will not end without saying something about what I saw as the human side of our captors. The situation could have ended tragically for us, since they were armed and nervous, knowing well that the army was around and could intervene at any time. I saw how worried they were, afraid that something could happen to us. So there he was, in the midst of this tense situation and all this risk and danger, still being able to conjure in himself, that sense of empathy, to feel, to perceive the human side of his captors. And given the mission that this prelate had taken upon himself, especially when they were abandoned in Mbole, it is ironic that he finally did not see the phone to his palace, because he narrates that after he was released, he arrived in Kumbo, and he was eager to meet the phone, because from the moment that they entered, they were taken into the bush, they were separated and taken to different locations in the bush. So he didn't see the phone after that. So he arrived in Kumbo, was eager to meet the phone, who should already have been in his palace, according to what the Amba Boys told him, that he would be released, and by the time the Cardinal got to Kumbo, the phone would be in his palace. But the Cardinal arrived there, and the phone was not in his palace. And the Cardinal says, my disappointment was understandably great when I realized that our captors had lied to me about the phone already being released. Not knowing exactly where he was or what had happened to him was a source of great pain and anxiety for me. I decided to stay in Kumbu until he was released. It was 2 days later that I heard that he had finally been let go and had of his own free will decided, of his own free will, decided to go back to Bamenda for medical treatment instead of coming up to his palace in Kumbu. I thank God Almighty for sparing his life. So again, I mean, to drive in the sense of, I mean, the pathos that the Cardinal may have been feeling in all of this, there is this heroic mission that he took on, this delicate mission that he took on, which led him into these experiences, encounter with Amba Boys, and which ultimately, in a way, was not accomplished because he did not succeed to get the phone back to the palace as he had undertaken to do, or as had been thrust upon him to do. Now, in all of this, the Cardinal, as narrator in this book, finds time for light-hearted moments. He even goes into humor, one would say, at his own expense. For example, when they meet the governor of the Northwest region towards the end of the book, this is what the Cardinal says. He says, the governor came to meet us at the hotel where the phone was. He expressed his relief at seeing us, but had a good laugh all the same, because we had turned down his offer of a military escort up to Nso. Our discussion was lighthearted, and I left feeling happy that I had met the phone again under more pleasant circumstances. Because indeed, the governor, as the Cardinal recounts, the governor had offered a military escort for the phone's party from Bamenda to Nso, but the phone turned down that offer. And here is the Cardinal poking fun at themselves, as it were, to say, well, the governor, in the end, had a good laugh. Ladies and gentlemen, my Night in Captivity is indeed a very slim book, as Martin mentioned. It's just 53 pages long. And I suppose even for a slow reader, you can read 53 pages in 3 hours or less. So that should be one of its attractions, that you can read it from cover to cover in 3 hours or less. The narrative is kept tightly within the bounds of the book's title, namely A Night in Captivity. It does not digress at any point from this theme. Throughout the book, this narrative proceeds at an even pace and from the heart, so that the reader gets a feel of the narrator's emotions with every sentence. In reading this book, I am charmed by the simplicity of the author's language. It is easy to read and understand. His style is neither contrived nor convoluted. It is free from the episcopal, theological, or philosophical exhibitionism that you might expect of a cardinal's writing. In fact, to the point of repeating the same expressions in close proximity in order essentially to remain simple and accessible to the general reader. Let me give you a few examples. On page 28, the narrator says, David quickly left his seat. And not far from there, he says, I quickly intervened. On page 32, they were hesitating to talk. And not long after that, if they wanted me to talk. On page 43, I sat on the grass while my driver was trying to call. And shortly thereafter, as I sat on the grass, a woman hurried to bring me a chair. On page 51, thanking all of you who prayed for our release. And not long after that, those of you who expressed their sympathy and prayed for our release. The Cardinal, as I said earlier, is conscious of the predicament and the gravity, as well as the danger of the situation. And as Martin said, several books have been written about the Cardinal. And the Cardinal himself wrote several books before he passed away. And this one, small and slim as it is particularly commendable, and that's why I would commend it to readers, because of the theme, because of the exceptional experience of an exceptional character in the exceptional circumstances of what is prevailing in our country, in our land. I would, if I were to rate the book, I would easily give it a 4.5 on a scale of 5. I didn't think that I would have to speak about the Cardinal as such outside reviewing this book. But once or twice, Martin hinted at or made it to appear as part of his expectation that I would talk about the Cardinal in connection with the Anglophone General Conference initiative. As everyone, most of us know, when the Cardinal passed away, in a short video of about 3 minutes, or just under 3 minutes, I, instantly expressed my tribute to this great man whom I had the opportunity to know and to work with. I felt privileged to have been able to travel to Cameroon in time for his funeral. I arrived on the 18th of April for his removal on the 19th and burial on the 20th. And that gave me a sense of closure with respect to my knowledge, understanding, attachment to this great man. When it comes to the Anglophone General Conference, I was to travel to the United States on the 21st of July 2020. And on the 17th, I went to Douala to see him and to say goodbye. And we got on to talk about the Anglophone General Conference and how far the experience had gotten and what we could expect of it further, and so on. And I told him that I had the intention, indeed, to write the backstory of the AGC, which he agreed. He thought it was a good idea. And I obtained from him his consent when the time came to write the foreword to the book, which he agreed to do. Now, for the AGC, as many people would have noticed, since about March of 2017, I strongly advocated, like many other people did, by the way, because there were many calls to that effect, strongly advocated the convening of a national dialogue on the Anglophone problem as a way of resolving the Anglophone problem and ending the Anglophone crisis, which in terms of March 2017 was still in its early days. But the question arose as to who had the standing, who had the legitimacy to convene a meeting of Anglophones, because the idea was that the national dialogue on the Anglophone problem and crisis should be preceded by a preparatory meeting of Anglophones amongst themselves, given the disparity of opinions and so on among the Anglophones. But the question was, who is to convene the Anglophones to such a meeting? As we had done in 1993 and 1994, the AAC 1 and 2, as Martin recalled. But we derived, in our mind, we derived our legitimacy to come to summon a meeting of Anglophones, the four of us, from the fact that we were 4 Anglophones in a nationally mandated constitutional drafting committee of 11 members to come up with a new constitution. And we felt that in order to overcome some of the resistance we were getting within the commission to portray the Anglophone problem as a national problem that needed to be resolved through a new constitution, we should call a meeting of Anglophones to, as it were, get their mandate to push what we were pushing in that committee. Hence, the convening of the AAC in Buea in 1993. So when it came to 2017, the same question arose. Who has the legitimacy? Who has the standing to convene a meeting of Anglophones, given that the Northwest and Southwest regions of the country since 1972 do not have any institution in common that could claim to convene a meeting like that? And to my mind, the obvious answer was that it was our political leaders in terms of members of the National Assembly and senators who should convene such a meeting, supported as it were by our traditional rulers. Those 3 components, I believed, had the legitimacy to convene our people. And so I took it upon myself to approach the key players in those 3 components. The story is long, it will be told someday, as I said, in the backstory to the Anglophone General Conference. But suffice it to say at this moment that much to my chagrin, the actors in those 3 components were not forthcoming. And so ultimately, we turned towards the religious authorities. Now, in the meantime, again, as the Cardinal narrates in the book, My Night in Captivity, the Cardinal on his own had been reflecting on the same problem, the same issue, had the same concern, and discovered that he and I were converging virtually at the same point on that in terms of strategy, meaning convene a meeting of Anglophones. And so through the Bishop of Kumbu, His Lordship Bishop George Nkwo, the Cardinal obtained my telephone number and he contacted me and invited me to Douala for us to talk about this. And I went to Douala, we discussed, and we decided how to proceed. The rest is for another day. But I want to say that the sincerity with which the Cardinal, the fervor, the dedication with which he embraced this cause, the deep conviction that it was a way out, the way to a solution to this problem. It is a pity that he was not followed, that he received this, opposition from the state authorities on the one hand, but also from separatist leaders, especially those in the diaspora. Imagine what our country would have been if such a conference, a preparatory conference of Anglophones had been held in 2017, 2018, established a catalog of evidence of what we've been complaining about in terms of marginalization, domination, assimilation, takeover for this past 60 years. And then take that up, well prepared, to a national dialogue on the Anglophone problem. In a matter of weeks, the Cameroonian people would have found a solution, a formula that would enable us to solve the Anglophone problem and end the Anglophone crisis and save our nation all the devastation that has been its lot, especially in the Northwest and Southwest regions this past 4 to 5 years. The Cardinal is not here, but I personally believe that that initiative represents, or if you like, that approach still represents the most promising pathway to solving the Anglophone problem, ending the Anglophone crisis, and in the process, maintaining the territorial integrity of our nation. And on that note, I would like to end, but again, by thanking the PS Books and Martin, the organizers of this event, for the opportunity of this interaction with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Monzu. Thank you very much. I'm sure there will be questions during the question and answer session that will be coming up. We will take a breather now, and I believe Richard Kings is there. I saw him. Well, Richard, if you are ready, please just take over. You will give us Beyond the Storm. That's what we'll listen to now. If you are ready, please.
There is a light in the depths of darkness, in a clergy's pilgrimage for peace. There is a light in the darkness. A prelate in chains is a community in pain, and we know it for sure, and we've been here before. Where did we go wrong? Look what we've done to our world. See what we've done to our own children. See what we've done to a land. What did we do? I look around and I hear the children cry, the mothers crying. Where did we go wrong? And why did we put chains on a prelate who's just a messenger? Let it not be taken easy. Oh, don't you see what we've done to a world that we were given for free? And see how far we've fallen into the dungeons of oblivion. We've created countries without armies and armies without countries. We've made the world a torn, and I don't know what to say. Oh, child, please come and walk with me, oh child. Oh, my son, please come, let me take you and walk with you. Even though I'll walk on thorns, I'll carry you on my shoulders so you won't see all what's going on. Where did we go wrong? What did we do to our fatherland? What did we true to what we were given just for free? What did we say to the ancestors to abandon us now? Where do we go to lay the sacrifices that we seem to have too much of? But now we can't even walk on the shrines that we were made to go sacrifice all we had to now. Now I have to do my sacrifice on a virtual Zoom, telling the world that the earth ain't this. We've got to build the bridges beyond the storms. What do we see? So, oh Munzu, please take your child, hold him by your hand, and show him the road to tranquility. Show him the road to church and let him know that at the end of the day, this is all vanity. This is all vain, and it doesn't matter what we do. Tomorrow's people will be here, and what is tomorrow when they can't even talk anymore? So it doesn't even make sense no more. A clergy is in chains, a clergy is in pain, and the whole community says, even if it's a child of God that was nailed on the cross, wasn't it enough for you and I to say? Even if it's a child that was nailed for no sin of his, see what we've done to our beautiful country, to my beautiful Kimbo now. See what we've done to my Kikaikelaki now. So now I'll make sure that I plant a seed of love. I'll plant a seed of love with life. I'll plant a seed of life with love. And I'll make sure that tomorrow's people will be saved. I'll carry them on my shoulders. Even though I walk on thorns, I'll do that. And that is all we've got to do now. Hey, his night in captivity is our nights in captivity too. So we will plant a seed of love with life, plant a seed of life with love, and that's the way it's gotta be again. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow.
Wow.
Thank you, Richard. That should perhaps be entitled The Lament for the Fatherland. Great, great song. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
God bless. Okay, before we go, before I call on Lillian to do the book giveaway announcement, I just want to go back to what Dr. Monzu said about the simplicity of the writing in Cardinal Tumi's book. You know, I've worked with Cardinal Tumi for a long time, and one of his complaints is that people write too elaborate language that is beyond the understanding of the ordinary person. I don't know how many times he has told me each time I write something, are you writing for your university people? You should be writing for our people, not for the university people alone. So I was struck by your comment that the book, I mean, about the simplicity of the writing. It was very deliberate. The Cardinal didn't want to be too elaborate on many of these things. So thank you very much. You sounded more like a literary person than a lawyer, Dr. Monzu. And now Richard has come in there to give more fervor to our event today. Richard, thank you very much. You were there last time for me, and today you are here again for the Cardinal. Thank you. Lillian, please, you will go with the book giveaway announcement.
Sure. I also want to thank Richard Kings for that. It was a dirge, kind of a dirge, a lamentation, but also a very powerful message that comes through from the words. And I just kept shaking my head, like, you know, a prelude in chains, and you know, it's a community in pain. It just captures everything about that night and what we're going through at the moment. So thank you very much for that. So as part of this launch, we are giving away two books from our publishing outfit. And to participate and to get a copy of those books, you need to participate in a quiz, a fun quiz about the Cardinal and about this book. So we invite you to stay tuned. I will share a link to that quiz on the chat. Do join in and participate. It's fun. And you get to win a free copy of a book from Spears. So I hope you all do participate. It should be fun.
We encourage many people to participate. Lillian will post the link very soon, and please enter and participate and win a book. There's also a lot of fun for this program, quite an innovation from Spears Books, which I find quite interesting. Thank you. Dr. Ben Bongang is listening. Ben is one of the very early journalists of Radio Cameroon, radio, television, what do you call it, CRTV, Cameroon Radio and television, you know. Ben and I were together in Yaoundé in those days, and now he's worked for Radio Cameroon for a long time, and is now a professor in Savannah University. Correct me, Ben, if I make a miss of your university. Yes, so you've selected a passage from the Cardinal's book, which we would like to listen to before we call on Father Michael Chumbu to take over from you. Ben, the floor is yours. You are muted, Ben. You need to unmute. Ben is muted. Lillian or Jude, can you unmute Ben, please?
I've asked him to unmute.
Okay.
To unmute the computer, you're on.
Ben is not hearing us. He is speaking, but we can't hear him. He is muted. He doesn't realize that.
Just click the microphone button.
Ben is still muted, so we can't hear him.
If you can see the microphone on your device, it's crossed out in red. So just click on it, and that will unmute you. Dr. Bongan, can you hear us?
Okay, Ben has problems there. He tells me he's not able to unmute his microphone, and then we will go ahead and call on him a little later when his technical problem is resolved. Oh, I don't blame him. I'm perhaps worse when it comes to technology. So anyway, Father Michael, I believe is there, and I'm going to call on him now to give his own appraisal of the work he's done with the Cardinal. If Father Michael can come on, I believe he's hearing me. Well, Father Michael, anyone who saw the Cardinal during any of his visits to North America would no doubt have seen by his side this young priest, Father Michael Chumbu, who will be our next speaker. He served as the Cardinal's private secretary for over a decade, particularly during the last years of the Cardinal's life. Oh, okay. I hear the host does not allow people to unmute. Can Jude unmute everyone, please?
That has been fixed now.
That has been fixed? Okay.
So you can unmute Father.
Father, please, can you, well, well.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, Father, you're unmuted. Okay, you hear me now, right?
Yes, I do.
Oh, great. All right, thanks. So I was saying that anyone who has seen the Cardinal during any of his visits to North America must have seen you by his side. So you served as the Cardinal's private secretary for over a decade, particularly during the last years of his life. I think that's when he needed you most. Cardinal Tumi sent Father Michael to study in North America. And he always told me that wherever Father Michael went to study, he left a very positive image of himself as a hardworking and dedicated student and a priest. The Cardinal recalls, or I recall the Cardinal talking to me about him and with a lot of pride, saying how the bishops where Father Michael had served under their jurisdiction always asked him, the Cardinal, to send more priests who were as dedicated and hardworking as Father Michael was. So because of Father Michael's very staunch dedication to his studies and to his work as a priest, even when he was in North America and in Europe, the bishops under whom he served in these countries, were very happy and opened the door for other priests of the Archdiocese of Douala, whom the Cardinal sent there. Father Michael, who was a doctorate in education from England, and he's an exegete, that's a biblical scholar. His specialty is the Bible. And I remember doing a lot of work with Father Michael at Radio Veritas in Douala, and we talked on the Bible, and it was very well received. And so Father Michael exemplifies the vision which Cardinal Tumi has always had for the local clergy and for the church that is in Cameroon. That is, he wanted a very well-educated clergy, trained in the best schools around the world, and who are passionate about the church and her teachings, and are very determined and who are determined and ready to engage the secular world with the truth of the gospel. That is Cardinal Tumi's vision of his priest. People who are well-educated, who are not intimidated by, people who are chewing words from the Bible left and right, but who engage the world, the secular world, with the truth of the gospel. And we could not have found a better person than Father Michael to also react to this book. Father, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jumbam. I thank Spears Book for giving us the opportunity to tell our story, because to tell the story of the Cardinal is to tell our own story. As Richard says in that beautiful song, a priest represents all of us. His life tells our story as a people from the English-speaking part of Cameroon. His life tells our story, the story of every Cameroonian, the Cameroon that came out of the struggle for independence and where we are today. So Spears Book gives us a voice to do that. So I thank you so much for such a wonderful job. And I thank Mr. Jumbam. We've spoken a lot about the style of the book. I wouldn't want to go there, but I say that the book is a window into the heart and mind of a great man. It's a window into the heart and mind of a great man, Christian Cardinal Tumi. When it comes to his mind, the paradoxes and sometimes even the complexities of his ideas that are not betrayed in any way by the simplicity of his language. So the issues being talked about in such simple terms have very rich background to them. And Mr. Jumbam was able to capture that in this book. Reading the book, you have a sense of treading on something simple, but very deeply. It's a well thought out a book. His ideas are laid out accordingly, and of course, his sense of humor comes across. If you're close to him, you see how in the midst of fear or any form of pathos, he responds to it with a beautiful sense of humor that makes life look so easy. So those are things that stood out. But I would like to in literary terms, define this book as an epilogue. It's an epilogue of the man's life. The book pulls together everything that the cardinal stands for in his person, in his prophetic vision and serve, and of some of his main ideas. I'm just going to focus on a few of those. Firstly, his vision. The book plays out in a dramatic way. It's a whole play of his whole agency involvement, because it pulls together everything that the cardinal stood for within the agency. So happy to meet Dr. Munzu here. When my first encounters in the agency, he was present, and we carried on after that. The book is a dramatic representation of all of that. Which was the kind of driven by the love for peace for our country, peace for everybody involved, peace for the children who needed to go to school, even peace for the Amazonians. He spent his time at home, calling these people on telephone. In the morning, he could talk to the highest government authority. By the evening, he's talking to the highest Amazonian authority overseas by phone. He did not have in himself any sense of quietness or peace, because he was driven by the longing for a greater peace for everyone. I think the book captures it very well, that the man of his age finds himself in the midst of such turmoil, but keeping a calmness that equals his dignity at the same time. Another thing about his vision that came across was federalism. He always said it whenever we had the agency meeting, at every opportunity, during press conferences, that he's a diehard federalist, diehard federalist, something that he will affirm in very clear terms. I'll not focus on that, but I just want to highlight some of those things that came out of the book that I think summarizes his life. He was a very patriotic human being. His love for Cameroon was unflinching, and that love was supported by some key principles on which he stood. A country where everybody will have the opportunity to flourish as an individual, where there's no discrimination of race and language, or not even of religion. His involvement with the agency. The agency was something to him, a supra-religious structure that went beyond any particular religion. It was more of a humanitarian rather than even a spiritual organ to bring about peace. His prophetic voice also is something that comes across in the book that even goes beyond the book, because, as I said, the book is an epilogue. It points to the kind of life that he's had, to everything that he's been throughout. Now, at the beginning, Mr. Jumbam spoke about his encounter with Amba Boys and other government officials who interviewed him. My favorite part of the book is when he's standing in front of these Amba Boys and they are questioning him. That's a very, very powerful passage. It brings to mind Jesus in front of Pilate in the Bible. And the question you want to ask yourself is, who is judging who at that point? Who is judging who? Is it the cardinal judging the Amba Boys, or the Amba Boys judging the cardinal? And at that point, it does a very biblical representation of Jesus in front of Pilate. And of course, they had no answer to the cardinal, just as it was with the case of Jesus, because his points and ideas were touched the heart of the human person, and not just some kind of philosophical or ideological deliberations. So those are the kind of things that come across in the book that captures the life of the person himself. His prophetic voice that never cave into polarization. Usually when we have an issue, people take sides. But with the cardinal, even being so close to him, I was never too sure about his position on an issue, because he would not take side based on the people in front of him. He would take side based on the issue at stake and the outcome of the issue, putting a human person at the center of it. So in his last year, there was so much injustice done to his person when people said, oh no, he's going to end his life in a very tragic manner because he's taking side with maybe these people, or maybe his affirmations about the conference that took place in Yaoundé were not in favor of the Anglophone people. I think that is undermining the kind of person that he was. The Cardinal was a prophet. He was a prophet. And the prophet is not conditioned by people to whom he spoke. The prophet is driven by some words of wisdom that he got from the inside. And that's something that I really like to highlight. That prophetic stance of his comes across throughout his life. When you look at the life of the Cardinal and read his previous publications, you identify to that, because the Cardinal has always taken stands that are unpopular. Sometimes even within the church. It's no secret, of course, that even within the Episcopal Conference, the Cardinal stood out as the one who would take positions or stands that were unpopular. But gradually, with time, people saw the wisdom in what he was doing. The prophetic stance that also made him to be very daring, a daring somebody. So daring, even to be able to convene the AGC. I don't think of any previous come together where you had Muslim, Christians, Catholic, Protestants, everybody coming together to focus on a particular issue. He was driving force behind all of that. Another thing that makes this book an epilogue to me, and that I hold so dear, because when I read this book, I've read it several times, I see the Cardinal in a very close portrait, his personality. He was a very generous man. In chapter 8, he commends his driver. That's the kind of person we're talking about. Now, in the heat of something so important, he has admiration, appreciation for what is good, for good acts that people do, not irrespective of who does it. He commends his driver, and it adds to other stories or personal stories of him, how he was able to stand up for people that were defenseless, people who could not defend themselves, how he would show up in unlikely places to intercede or to intervene in favor of somebody who is weak and unable to do so for themselves. You have him pausing, to appreciate the lady and the chair in the book, the lady who comes and offers him a chair. The sense of gratitude that his words carry. You could see that somebody who does not make everything about himself. He thinks about other people and what those people are able to do for him. I think that comes out very powerful in this publication. I think if you want to remember the Cardinal, reading this book helps us, as it did to me, to bring to mind the person that I knew for so many years, for over 30 years, and journeyed with. The book ends in a rather hopeful manner. The Cardinal ending with prayers and gratitude. And before that, the last two paragraphs talks about the Cardinal's position. He says he's not sure about what will happen, the path of hope. He knows that that something is going to be done, but he's not himself. He's not sure. He doesn't make himself a messiah. He doesn't present himself as somebody with whom history comes to an end. It's an open bracket that he lives, and until his passing away, that was his position. I remember his last moment talking about this issue. He spoke about it more in silence than with words. Each time you bring it up, he would just listen to you and stare at you, and just in his eyes you could see that myself, I'm waiting for that magical moment to come. And it can only instill a sense of duty in some of us, the young people that were around him. He was looking at the Cardinal in his last days on his sickbed. It only brought to mind the obligation that I have to tread the paths of life that the Cardinal had taken, to stand for my own people, to be able to open new chapters and new avenue of dialogue in this Anglophone problem, on this problem that concerns our people. That is my contribution to this debate, that the book is an epilogue, a window into the mind and heart of a great mind. And if you have not read his previous books, it might be good to begin with this one. Because by reading this one, you have a better understanding of everything that he had lived before. And it makes for an easy digest of a life of a cardinal. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Father Michael. That's really great. Really appreciate your contribution. There is an aspect of this book which I should point out, which came almost at the end of the book when I brought the final manuscript to the Cardinal, and he told me, listen, I haven't finished yet, and he brought something in the book which has caused quite some controversy, which he says that if the dialogue with the separatists doesn't work out, and the government is still reticent to engage in any form of dialogue, the military should take over. When that came, I went to him and I said, well, are you really sure? He said, yes. I said, but hey, you know what's going to be said about you? You're going to be chewed in the papers. And he said, well, you and your people can chew me up, but that is my point of view. And that particular paragraph came in, and I know it caused quite some stir among those who had read the book, who said, well, the man said he doesn't want power, but here he is. He wants the military to take over. So it's also something that just came to mind, and I thought I should bring that up. Okay, thank you very much, Father. Thank you. I'm glad to see that you could join us from Douala. We have people from Douala I see here, and from Cameroon and other parts of our country. And the internet was kind to us today. Thank you very much. Before I hand over to Lillian for the coupon release for the books and so on, I think Dr. Ben Bongang is back with us. Ben, if you are there, please take over.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Martin asked me to select a short paragraph to read at this event. And I scanned the book, and this paragraph stood out to me. Dr. Monzo had started mentioning part of it. It is under the section, the human side of our captors. And if you have the Kindle version, it should be page 41. And I'm reading from the second paragraph. When I talk of the human side of these children in the bushes, I remember one I met in Kikai who told me that they were no longer sure of what they were fighting for. There is no longer any clear, defined purpose for their struggle. Some of those who held us captive said just as much. They have lost track of the purpose for which they are fighting. A few of them even gave my driver their phone numbers, and weeks later, without waiting for him to call them, they called him to ask how I was doing and asked him to greet me. Then they told him that they had nothing to eat and wondered if he could be of any assistance. In all truthfulness, I too wonder with these boys what this struggle is for now. It is high time the guns fell silent so we can bury our loved ones and embark on the reconstruction of our land. There can be no victor in this war. Should it persist, we will all emerge as losers. Let peace reign in our land. That is what I thought stood out the most in this book.
Well, thank you very much, Ben. Yes, very touching part, which, as Dr. Monzo mentioned earlier, the human side of the Cardinal. He does not see these boys as adversaries. He sees them as our children who are in the bush, who need to come out and stop fighting, and let our children to go to school. That one is very clear. I'm going to call, before I call, we have another musician with us, Gaspard Mbole. Gaspard, are you there, please? You will, while Lillian is working on the coupon release, or Lillian, would you want to handle that before I go to Gaspard?
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Lillian, please.
So quickly, I hope people are having fun and learning a lot, getting inspired. We have just pasted links to this book on the chat. So look on the chat window, you would see a link for this book. One is on the Spears website. The other one is on Amazon, amazon.com. So please go to that website and rate the book. So this is again for those who have bought copies of the book. If you bought a Kindle version, you can also, of course, rate the book from your Kindle device. But we really appreciate people rating the book, leaving a comment or two, something that could be helpful for others who may want to buy that book as well. So click on that link. We'll give you a few moments to do so. Any of them, depending on where you purchased your book. Maybe it's on the Spears website itself. If it's on Amazon, you can go on that link and it would say you're a verified owner of this book. It would actually allow you to paste your comments. The same is true of the Spears website. It would also, if you bought your copy from there, it would recognize you immediately. And it would say you are a verified owner of this book. So we appreciate your comments. You can also share this link with other people you know, other interested readers. And yeah, and like I said earlier, the book is currently discounted. It is on sale. So you may want to take advantage of that low price if you haven't purchased a copy yet, or you may want to share this with friends and family. So I think that's it, Mr. Jumbam. You're muted. Still muted.
All right. Okay, well, there you are.
Great.
Thank you very much, Jude. We really hope people will go there and leave their comments and give Spears Media 5-star, please. You know, so that would help enormously. Thank you very much. The next, we are grinding gradually to the end, but I want to bring in my good friend, Gaspard Mbole. Gaspard is one person who is very familiar with the Cardinal. Gaspard is a great musician. He was in charge of a good number of choirs at the Archdiocese of Douala. Gaspard is, we now step in. He's done a lot of work with the Cardinal. So he's someone he was very familiar with, someone he worked with very closely. So Gaspard, please, we are listening to you.
Thank you, Martin. The song that I just want to share with you is, I want to say during the time that I spent with the Cardinal in Douala, I was very lucky to work with him because I learned a lot. And he always had a song for all the masses that we had to perform with him. And he insisted that when we had the choir that has to come in, we must sing that song. And in remembrance of him, that's the song that I want to share with you. It's in French. He liked to sing it in French, but I think there is an English version. I don't have the lyrics in English.
Si nous mourons avec lui nous vivrons. Si nous souffrons avec lui nous régnerons. Si la gloire de Jésus-Christ ressuscité d'entre les morts, il est notre salut, notre gloire éternelle. En lui sont nos peines, en lui sont nos joies, en lui l'espérance, en lui notre amour, en lui toute grâce, en lui notre paix, en lui notre gloire, en lui le salut. Souviens-toi de Jésus-Christ ressuscité d'entre les morts. Il est notre salut, notre gloire
Thank you very much, Gaspard. You definitely know, you know the Cardinal very well. You were with him, and he encouraged you people who were in the choir in the different parishes in Douala. Thank you very much. It's a great tribute to him. Thanks. Okay. It's a book giveaway quiz now, Lillian. Are you ready? Can we go to that now, please?
So I've just put a link again in the chat. So you have a link to menti.com and a code to enter to participate in the quiz. And I'm going to share my screen for those who are joining. In case you're not able to look at the chat, then you have access. You can see my screen and go and enter that code and password. Okay, take the screen. So go to www.menti.com and enter the code 41226723. So we're going to wait for people to join us. Please use your name.
Participation, please. We encourage participation. www.menti.com and use the code 41226723. Please enter the quiz.
We're giving away free books. There are more than 2 people on this Zoom, so keep joining. It should be fun and easy. Some of the questions, the answers to the questions have been given away during the launch, if you paid attention. Hint, hint.
Well, someone complains it doesn't seem to work.
Okay, we have 5 people on now.
Oh, great. Okay. To encourage more people to enter the quiz, you can pick up the book. You just need to enter www.menti.com. The code is 41226723.
It's also in the chat.
Also in the chat.
Yeah. So we'll leave room for up to 10 people to join, but if we don't get up to that, we will go ahead and start.
Yes, we will. But we hope even more than 10 people should join.
I should add that there's a chance to win a copy of the book we are launching. So if you haven't had the opportunity to buy one yet on our website, here's your chance to get a free copy. I see somebody who keeps dropping and coming back. I don't know if they're having problems with their connection. Person with the strawberry.
Yeah, maybe they are. They trying to join and not succeeding.
Sure. So with this quiz, you want to be you're scored based on the speed, how fast you answer, how soon you answer, and the accuracy of your answer. So you have to get the answer right. You want to score more, get the answer right and answer fast. So make a selection fast. You have 15 seconds.
There's Devin Gong who complains he cannot enter. He's trying to get in. He cannot.
Why?
Oh, I don't know. He just tries there. Let's see that coming out in the chat. He says it does not appear to work. That's me. I can't enter.
Can you see in the chat again?
And Ayang says I am in, but it's not going to the next screen.
So menti.com, when you go to www.menti.com, it's just going to ask you for a code.
And you enter the code 41226723 is the code to enter.
And the code is what is right here. Yes, that's
right.
41226723. That's all.
So you
and once you do that, then you're going to appear on the screen here.
Okay, sounds good.
So if there are no more joining, we're going to proceed with the quiz.
How many people do you have? Still 5?
Yes, 5, 6. One keeps dropping in and out. So we will proceed with those who are here. Thank you for entering. So we're going to start. So answer fast to get more points. Yeah, 10 seconds to answer. 3, 2, 1. 4 people got that right. He did his seminary studies at the Bigard or Bigard Memorial Seminary in Enugu, Nigeria.
Bigard Memorial.
Okay, Bigard. Let's see who got it faster. BB. So 4 people got it right, but BB was the fastest and got more points. Question 2 of 10. Get ready. Starting now. 3 dioceses in Cameroon where he served as a bishop. Nice. 4 people got that right. Nice. Who got it fastest? Looks like Gaspard is about to take the lead here. And BB has dropped down. Okay, next. Question 3. Why did he initiate the Anglophone General Conference? Okay, all 6 are in. Time's up. It's a bit spread out, but one person got it right: to bring the government and separatists to dialogue for peace in Northwest and Southwest. Let's see what that does to the leaderboard. One person who got it right. And fastest moves up. Okay, the competition is getting tough. There's more chances to move. How did he become in negotiations for the fund to return home? Right, all 6 got that right. Let's see who got the fastest. Looks like BB and David. The fastest was BB. Awesome. Okay. It's getting tough. 5 more questions to go. So you can, a lot can happen in that time. The fawn was hesitant because his wife warned him that he would be killed if he returned home. 5 got that right. Let's see how quick he got it. Fastest was Gaspard. Nice. So the competition at the top is still stiff between Gaspard and Ayang Yanka. Question 6. Why did his abductors ask? What did they ask him to do for them? Nice. 5 people got that right. They wanted him to act as a spokesperson for their grievances to the world. Who got it fastest? And does that change anything? On the board, Gaspard got it fastest. And the board is still not changed in terms of who's leading. There's some more, 3 more. Okay. 4 got this one right. Why the separatists called the governor of the Northwest to warn the army not to intervene for fear of bloodshed. Gaspard still in the lead. Now Eric has displaced Ayang Yanka in second place. Okay. Question 8. Why did the Cardinal have so much praise for his driver? Oh, nice. All 6 got that correct. The driver stood by him and was ready to die for him. Who got it fastest? That makes a difference. Gaspard got that fastest. Question 9. He praised the woman who met them the morning they were freed because she brought him a chair and offered them food. He served them breakfast of fufu corn, the vegetables that morning. So 5 people got that right. What's happening right now? Okay, next is the final question. So answer fastest. What is his position if dialogue fails? The army should leave the barracks and take over power. Okay. And that is the end of the quiz. Let's see who comes out tops. So congratulations to Gaspard, who emerges the winner and wins a free book from Spears. That is wonderful. Thank you all for participating. So Gaspard, I am presuming you already have the book. You already? Okay, so you win a copy of Beautiful Fire, poetry collection by Joyce Ash, which is published by Spears. Thank you. Do drop us your mailing address on the chat privately and we will get that mail to you. And the second winner was Eric Tala. And Eric with a copy of the Cardinal's book, My Night in Captivity. So congratulations to you both. We would get this copy to you, Eric. Please send us your address on the chat and we will get that to you this week. Thank you all for participating. That was fun. So much knowledge about the Cardinal and his book. So thank you for participating.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much, Lillian. We now, unless Jude has something to say, we can then go to questions and answers. Jude?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jumbam. I just wanted us to take a moment to acknowledge David Ngong, the Cardinal's driver. He's here with us. David, do you mind showing us your face, please? And David was also one of the participants in the quiz. So all right, David, we can hear you, but we cannot see you.
Oh,
there is David. Thank you for standing by the Cardinal, and we want to acknowledge you and thank you for your heroism.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Good to see you.
A really long time, Mr. Jumbam. That's been long. I've been missing.
That's right. No problem, man. We'll be together soon.
Yeah. Okay, then. I'm glad. And I thank everyone. I've been listening from here. And I hear all the great participants, the testimony you have about Grandpa, as we call him. It's so touching. It just makes me to remember it's just reminding me days, of our old days we have together. Sometimes we'll discuss most of the things and talk and even run out of the road while I laughed. He was a very great and a funny man. His memory is still there, stuck in my head. I don't know how and how long it will ever take me for the memories to come out, but I believe they are sweet memories. If I can share, it will be a book of about 1,000 pages. So I only pray one day, if God keeps me alive and give me a calm mind, we'll have some time to draft them down and let people know our moment. Because the relationship I have with him was about a father and son relationship, not like somebody working for somebody. We have a very intimate relationship, like father and son.
Okay.
So it's very, very and so touching. And in my house, he's always remembered every day. With my young son, who is about 2.5 years, always come every day, look at his picture and say, Grandpa, Daddy, Grandpa, all the time. Grandpa. And when he says Grandpa, see Grandpa, just reminding me every day. So hearing from everybody about the testimony of him, I'm so glad. Those that have been there before me and those that are that I meet, I'm so happy and being touched. And thank you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's the Cardinal's driver. The Cardinal speaks very highly of him. Willing to lay down his life for him. We all thank him. Okay, well, what do we have now? Questions and answers. Well, time being of the essence, we'll entertain questions, short ones, and perhaps just 2 or 3. So you can ask your questions to Spears Media, to Dr. Monzu, to Father Michelle or Michael. Just the floor is open. And please, let's make our questions short, and to the point.
You can use the raise hand feature.
Yes, raise your hand, we will let you in.
I also like to add that sometimes people may not have questions, they may have comments.
Right.
Comments are also welcome.
They are, yes. But let's make them short and to the point, please. Thank you. As we wait for questions, is there a possibility to have some light background music? Lillian, you didn't foresee that, Jude? So that we don't have a silence in the...
Sure. No, there's a question on the chat.
Oh, there's a question, okay.
From David. Do you think anything has happened since the Cardinal's passing that would change his assessment of the crisis?
Oof. I don't know who that is addressed to. It's,
To you.
Yeah, that's right. I was trying to escape from it, but well, from where I am now, I don't think much has happened that can make anyone think that the crisis is ending anytime soon, unfortunately. Anything at all, the picture and the echoes we're having from what they call ground zero, northwest, southwest, very more and more troubling. I saw the other day people celebrating because they had planted a mine that blew up a military truck, that is not something to celebrate at all. It is it's unfortunate that we are getting to that extent, that such heavy military hardware is getting into our country. What we used to read about in other lands, in Angola or Mozambique or I don't know, Rwanda, is coming right into our country, which is unfortunate. Okay. I don't know whether I answered that correctly. I think Jude has a question: what has become of the fun Nsor since his abduction and release? Has he returned to Nsor Palace? As far as I know, yes. I think he's gone back. He slipped back very calmly, and you know, and I believe I see him. Anyone in his palace, and he's receiving people, and seems to be living a quiet life so far, which is exactly what the Cardinal wanted to do, take the fun back to his people. He's now back, and we can only say thank God. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for that. Another question, follow up. I'm sure I think I discussed this with you, Mr. Jumbam, when the Cardinal was initiated into, I think, one of the exclusive male societies.
Right, right.
There was a lot of misconception about that. Can you clarify for our participants what exactly that was?
Yes, it was, you know, as you rightly say, exclusive male group in Scotland. Many people were wondering why a cardinal should be there, but you know, when we look in the Catholic Church today, there's what we call enculturation, which means you know, we can bring into the church aspects of our culture that are not inimical to the spirit of the Bible, of the gospel. You know, the cardinal being in there, many people miscrewed it and blew it out of proportion. You know, just in about every place in the Northwest and the Southwest, Northwest, I can speak for the Northwest, not the Southwest, but in the Northwest, where in many churches now, in many parishes, you have priests being in the, joining some of these groups, usually to open it up and bring the people into the into the faith. In most cases, could be a way of proselytizing, if you like, you know, getting people into the church. So that was really blown out of proportion. That got nothing to it. I see Gaspard has a raised hand. Is it still in the same regard, Gaspard?
No, I just had a different question when you don't answer it that way.
Ah, okay. Well, Jude, I don't know whether I answered your question, but I think it was blown out of all proportion. It was really nothing to it. Yes, Gaspard, please.
Thank you. My question will go to Dr. Muzu, and I'm very honored to talk to him in this forum. So thank you for
the volume is very low, Gaspard. Is there a way you can raise your volume, please?
Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, it's much better now, yes.
Okay. So I was saying that my question is directed to Dr. Muzu, and I'm very happy to have him here.
He has problems hearing you, you know. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Go ahead, Gaspard.
Okay. So my question is, the initiative that was that we were counting out, that was the AGC, since it didn't hold. Don't you think, you with the big experience that you have had in so many countries, that we could maybe focus on something based on who we really are, that can go beyond the foreign languages, so that we should not have a reflection based on the English or French, but based on our Africanness, because it's something that has been kind of blurring in my mind, that can take us across this boundary that becomes deeper and deeper.
I don't know whether Dr. Manzu had the question, but
Yeah, well, I hope I did. I have to say that the volume was very low, but I explained, I hope I picked up something. Yeah, you know, that keeps coming up. That particular question keeps coming up. But we have to decide who we as Africans want to be. When colonialists left and said that they granted us independence, you know, by the time they came to put all our ethnic nations together, as in the case of Cameroon, so many ethnic nations together to give a thing called Cameroon. And I suppose next door, Nigeria is the same thing. If you go to Uganda, it's the same thing, practically all over the continent. Colonialists put ethnic nations together and then give them these names, Uganda, Cameroon, this and that. Now, when they decided to leave, there were two options, in my view. They could either have said, we are leaving, and because we put you together for our own purpose, and now that we are leaving, you go back to what you were before we put you together. In that case, after independence, each of these things we call countries, now Cameroon and so on, would be just, each ethnic nation within that country will go back to what it was before. And from that perspective, there will be no need to talk about Cameroon or Nigeria or Uganda or Ghana or any of them. Okay? But the alternative was to say, okay, we brought you together, we're granting you independence, and you are going to govern yourself as these new independent states, forming one, as if you were one nation, but you're not one nation. You may be one state, but you're not one nation. Okay? And the colonialists and those who took over from them, our first generation of rulers, seem to have accepted this second alternative. And the consequence is that we are governing ourselves not based on any African model, but based on our colonial heritage. Is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? We can debate that, but that is the reality. And so in the case of Cameroon, that reality plays itself out in terms of Anglophone heritage and Francophone heritage. If we decide to form a country while we are still working on that model, then we have necessarily to speak of Anglophone heritage and Francophone heritage and see how we can accommodate both in a way that allows us to operate, to function as one quote unquote nation, but certainly as one state. Okay? Otherwise, if you want to bring it to the African dimension, then let's not talk of Cameroon, because if we bring it to the African dimension, there is no Cameroon. There's no Cameroon. What do you think holds the talking about this book, what do you think holds Nsor land together with Bakwere land, together with, I don't know, Oroko land, and we say that this is the southern Cameroons? What is it that they have in common? What they have in common is their inherited colonial system of education, colonial system of justice, colonial system of policing, and so on. So as long as we maintain that model, then we cannot escape having to reason in terms of Anglophone heritage, Francophone heritage in Cameroon. Now, does that mean that we cannot, if that is the will of the Cameroonian people, that we cannot invent something new? We can say that although we started with these two heritages, because they're causing us problems and they are not indigenous to us and so on and so forth, let us spend time designing something that is originally ours. If you like, originally Cameroonian, but Cameroonian from this point forward, which is nothing to do with the Anglophone heritage, nothing to do with the Francophone heritage. And we are, as a people, capable of doing it. We are capable of doing it. But are we doing it? Do we want to do it? Have we started doing it? No. Therefore, in the interim, we're waiting to get there if that's where we decide to go and if we ever get there. In the interim, we cannot escape the reality that there is a Francophone heritage and Anglophone heritage. So the Anglophone General Conference initiative was indeed predicated on the necessity within our country, which came together in the circumstances that we all know historically, to say that it is not right within that arrangement for the Francophone to dominate, to marginalize, to try to assimilate the Anglophone. So let's solve that. But once we solve that, we can then turn to the problems of Cameroon as a whole to ask our question today in 2021. What Cameroon do we want? Do we want a Cameroon of the colonial heritages? Or do we want a Cameroon that we Cameroonians rethink and construct for ourselves? For my part personally, I would say that the long-term objective ought to be to come up with a Cameroonian that we forge for ourselves. We have to design a new Cameroon. And to allow this to consider these heritages, Anglophone and Francophone, only as, if you like, contingent, temporary, while waiting to discard them. That's a challenge that we as Cameroonians have. And I suppose, if you come to think of it, of Africans in other countries as well. So I hope I've answered your question. So it's not an easy thing of just saying, oh, well, this is a colonial thing. Why don't we? No. We were brought together by colonialists. They left us their cultures. We unfortunately decided to continue to govern ourselves as per their cultures. So there's no reason why one of those cultures in a country where there are two, like in the Cameroon, should be considered as inferior to the other.
Thank you very much, Dr. Monzu. We will continue. I see John Neba in Douala is asking why the Cardinal and the Funam turned down a military escort proposed by the governor of the Northwest. And my understanding was that during the initial meeting in Yaoundé, the elders on South Land decided that they did not want the military to be involved. You know, people are very, very hostile towards the military. And if the Fun and the Cardinal were brought to insult by the military, they couldn't know exactly what was going to happen. So they wanted to do it on their own, just to show the insult people that the military or the government had no say in bringing the Fun back. The Fun was taken out by the military. And you know, the idea during their meeting was that he should come back calmly and come back home, brought home by the elders and not by the military. I think that was basically the reason, is that they turned down the military escort from the government. We have just about 5 more minutes before we wrap up. We've been on this thing for quite a while, and time is of the essence. So we can accommodate about one more question, perhaps a rapid one. If not, then we'll have a closing remark. Oh yeah, Lillian has already announced the winners of the book giveaway. I think we should perhaps conclude now. Jude, please. My part, I want first of all to thank Spears Books for making this happen. You're making it happen more and more often, and this is really great because you are putting our people, our writers like me and the others, really in the limelight. You publish a book which I've been holding on to for, I had no publisher for 30 years. And then, you know, you put it out there. So it is really great. This really opens a way to many other people to get in touch with you and have their work out for public consumption. Thank you very much personally to Spears Books. And I thank Dr. Monzu. You know, I got in touch with you. You were quite willing to put aside whatever you had to do today to be with us. Father Michael, I know it's already kind of late in Douala. You have your parishioners waiting for you tomorrow morning. So you need to go and prepare. Thank you very much for taking the time, and thank you for for bringing us your views of somebody you have worked with very closely and you know so well. Thank you very much. And thank you, David. I was really particularly happy to see you, the Cardinal's driver. Thank you. Thank you, Gaspard, and Richard King, and Father Francis Dufay, no, not Francis, Father Joseph Dufay. They're the people who provided the music. Father, what do I call him, Francis? Father Joseph was not able to be with us, and so, but he sent us music, which animated the program days before the program started. Thank you all very much. We look forward to other possibilities from Spears books. And so, Jude and Lillian, please.
Ben Bongam too. Thank you for reading that passage from the book.
Yes, so Jude, yeah, Ben. Ben.
So, I wanted to comment on something that really
went through to be with us, Ben. That was very good. Thank you very much, my man. Thank you.
Before we wrap up, I wanted to comment on something that really comes through in the book is how much respect he had for the culture of Salt Land and the elders. I think people forget that, you know, they just look at him as the prelate and the priest, but he was a very proud Salt man. And that comes through in the memoir as well, in the respect he has for the elders. And he's always, despite the position that he held as an authority and a public figure, and being reached out to when the Salt people and the elders needed him, he was always mindful that the elders were really the people who had the authority when it comes to culture and the kingdom. And he was always mindful to listen to their position and to go with what they said. I thought that was really, really a genuinely powerful message that comes across, that you can straddle both worlds and do so in a very powerful and significant way that honors your tradition and celebrates who you are as a Christian. It's a very good and timely example for us as a society, because people like to think that we separate these things. You cannot be a Christian and still respect your tradition and celebrate it in many ways. So that really comes through in his book, in the way he worked with the elders and taking that leadership with regards to the fund and always being respectful of the fund and his decisions. So Martin, I want to thank you for having accepted to work with the Cardinal to bring this book to life. Memoirs and autobiographies are really, really something that is, there's a paucity of that in our literature, in our writing. And I always plead with people, please write your story. People say journalism is the first draft of history, but autobiographies are indeed that draft. We want to leave something behind. Don't let other people tell your story. Tell it the way you experienced it. Tell the journey that you walked and the paths that you crossed. It's very important for our history and our legacy that we have that draft of history from the horse's own mouth. And I deeply, deeply appreciate you for taking that challenge to bring this story to life. Because when this happened, you can imagine on social media, there were so many speculations and people just saying things out of the blue and they had no idea what they were talking about. So to have this draft come out in the Cardinal's own words really put a mark on that chapter. And it gives us a first account that we can read through and say, this is what happened. So deeply appreciate you and for trusting Spears enough to bring that to life. So thank you. I urge everybody to get a book. It's really a quick read. Like Dr. Monzo said, it's a quick and easy read. And it really captures the Cardinal's views, like Father Chumbo said. It's an epilogue, but it's a good way to start reading into the Cardinal's life. So do get a copy on our website. It's on sale now, $13, and we will have that shipped to you. So thank you all for being here. I'll hand it over to Jude for his closing remarks.
Judy's muted.
So thank you, Lillian. Thank you, Mr. Jumbam, for moderating. I think you've done a fantastic job. We really looked forward to this event, and we're glad that we pulled the number of people who could take time off their schedules to be with us, to celebrate not just the book, but also the Cardinal's life. Conclusion. So basically, what I want to, I think, emphasize here is that we truly want to see more literature in this pipeline, more literature about people's lives. And I'm going to let the cat out of the bag here. Mr. Jumbam has just written a draft of his own memoir. It is still very much in the early stages. And so many months down the line, we will be reconvening to have a really good discussion about that book. So I just want to say kudos. That's exactly what we look forward to. Please keep writing. If you're unable to write, record it. Everybody has a smartphone these days. Record your stories. We can find a way to get that transcribed. It is important that your story gets heard. Finally, we do have a couple of other events coming up. So if you're not in tune with what Spears Media is doing, go to our website, specifically our blog, and you can subscribe there. Each time we have an announcement, we would put it there so you can see. You can also like us on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. Our handle would be Spears Books. So there you would have updates on forthcoming events, on new books that are being published, and other community events that we'll be hosting. So thank you again for joining us. A special thanks for those from outside of the US. We know it's late, particularly in Europe and Africa, but we are grateful that you were able to join us today. So thank you, and see you soon at our next event. Bye for now.